a little scary.
Oh, it's fine. It'll just turn into a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah. Okay, it says live, so
I think we're live.
I've got the stream open here. It hasn't changed. Okay, yeah, it looks like we're live.
Awesome.
So, hey guys, so let's just start with some introductions. My name is Rebecca. I am a admin for the main Liberalist Facebook group, and I'm also a writer and editor for the Liberalist.net. In real life, I am a poor Canadian and a writer, and I work in retail and just generally exist. How about you, Scott?
Yeah, well, I live down here in Southern California. I just basically was interested in this in your posting, and I really appreciate you spending the time to have this. I think it's important. I really enjoyed Dr. Jordan Peterson's book and everything, and I'm just looking forward to this conversation.
Woo! Awesome. Yeah, I've been super excited about it too. It's an idea I've had for a while, and was just kind of thinking about it. But when I finally voiced it in like the leadership of the group, everyone was super excited. So I was like, yeah, I definitely have to do this. And I'm glad that this was the first book. Carlos, are you able to do an introduction?
Yeah, I can. You have to pardon my son in the background if you can hear him. No, Carlos. Yeah, yes. Fuck. Just one of those regular working stiffs.
Yep.
Yeah. Found out with the Liberalist thing, of course, through Sargon, who I've been a pretty big fan of for a number of years now. Found him through Gamergate, so it's been a long time. And it's actually kind of funny. I remember about 3 or so years ago, I commented on his video and saying, Sargon, you're like the Chris Evans to Thunderfoot's Orlando Bloom. And the great irony in that is, today Chris Evans is still doing a lot of acting. He's got a lot of big roles. Orlando Bloom, whether it's his choice or not, is not as many movies. And then look at Sargon and Thunderfoot.
That's actually really interesting. It's kind of an apt comparison.
It really is. It really is. I love how it's held true through the years.
That's really funny. But yeah, so Carlos and I have met in real life. So none of us are on camera, but I can picture you. I know what you look like. I'll keep the secret. It's okay.
I hope you enjoyed it.
If I knew we weren't going to be on camera, I could have changed my profile picture to like a meme of some sort. But
next time you'll have to surprise us with something.
Sure, yeah.
I thought about it too. I thought about like changing it to, if this isn't actually my channel, I'm just hosting. I was like, it would be weird if people like looked and saw a picture of like some rando as the Liberalist. So I was like, yeah. Let's not. I will just be represented by these old dead white men.
Oh man.
And not a whole lot of diversity here.
Yeah, exactly. So I have some discussion questions that I popped into a group chat with us, but I have them here as well. So shall we just jump in with the first question?
Yeah, let's go.
Awesome. So the first question is, where did you first hear about Jordan Peterson? What was the first thing you heard from him that piqued your interest? And would you call yourself a fan? I can start if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So I first, probably like a lot of people, I first heard about him on Sam Harris's podcast. I was kind of a big fan of the New Atheists at the time, and I listened to Sam's podcast a lot. And through Sam's Facebook, I kind of heard about this controversy about this podcast, and everyone was kind of in an uproar about it. So I was like, okay, definitely got to check that out. And I listened to it, and I thought Jordan Peterson was off his rocker. Like, I thought he was crazy. It was one of the first times that I've listened to a podcast and I couldn't do anything else. I was just sitting in my chair, like hand over my mouth, thinking and following the conversation. So it was, although I wasn't a fan of his at that moment, my first kind of interaction with him was just being like completely amazed by how he can take people on like this journey of thought. And I was just completely arrested by it and not able to concentrate on anything else. It was like super awesome. And then, so that happened. And so that was slightly before the whole gender pronoun thing. So that happened next. And that was what made me kind of think about it and be like, okay, wow, like this guy's onto something. And then, yes, I'm definitely a huge fan.
Yeah, well, I got a question for you. Did Sam Harris have him on before Sargon started making videos? Because I hear that a lot when people talk about how they were introduced to Jordan Peterson. It was typically through Sam Harris's podcast, and I remember my first time being introduced to him was through Sargon's video, "A Hero of #Free Speech."
Oh yeah, I think I've been thinking lately and wondering when I actually first started watching Sargon's videos, and I can't remember, but that may have been the first video that I watched from him.
Okay.
Because I know I definitely heard of him first through Sam Harris before the gender pronoun controversy. It was very, very quick between those two things, but it was the Sam Harris podcast that was my first interaction.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I was introduced to him through Sargon's videos, and I've also had the privilege to be in the audience twice and listen to him speak, and I can definitely share that feeling of like being taken down a thoughtful journey.
Yeah, I've seen him 3 times now, so yeah, it's definitely, it's like the biggest appeal to him.
Yeah, it's cool, and what's amazing about it too is that everybody is quiet, and you're just listening to him think.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird saying that out loud, but that's just how it is.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had always been a fan of like what he had to say and everything, and then this past February, I was lucky enough to meet him. It was kind of random because after the show, some guy came out on stage and was like, "Hey, he wants to meet you and sign your books and all that." And we just hopped in line, and I waited.
Oh,
maybe it was about an hour, maybe, and
yeah,
like 11:30 at night in LA, downtown LA, and I got to meet him, and that was just like really cool. And then from there, it was just fanboy ever since.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I saw him, the first time I saw him, I went to the Students for Liberty conference in Vancouver, and he was the last speaker of the night. And so the morning went through, all the speakers were there. Brett Weinstein was there, and Jonathan Pageau and Theron Meyer. So it was a really cool day. And then you could literally tell the minute he walked into the building, because everybody, like, there was like suddenly electricity in the room. Like everyone was on edge. And he actually had people from the UBC Free Speech Club had to guard outside the bathroom while he used it, because people were coming up to him. Okay. And like they had to guide him to his chair. And then as soon as his speech was done, there was a line from the front of the room to the back. And this was in like a conference hall of people waiting to speak to him. And like, it was just amazing. I haven't met him yet. I'm too scared. Even if I saw him on a street, I would be like, I don't want to bother him.
He's a very, very kind man. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would feel like I'm imposing, even though I know I'm not.
Well, yeah. Well, it was. There was. I can't even tell you how many people. I would guess maybe like 2,000 or 3,000 in the theater, and I don't even know how many people were behind me. And it was getting
Yeah.
really late, and there was a ton of people behind me, and I wanted to be respectful of everyone's time, and especially his. So I didn't get to ask him a question or anything, but I just thanked him for coming, and appreciated the intellectually stimulating conversation and all of that. And that was about it. It was only like 10, 15 seconds, but it was like the coolest 15 seconds ever.
That's awesome. How about you, Carlos?
Yeah, no, just like with Scott, I found out about him through Sargon. And it was actually when he answered that question, I remembered that was when I had heard about him as well, because it was very shortly after he basically became a household name.
Yeah.
Right. Like I was talking about an unrelated topic with someone I met through my work, and then she's like, "Oh yeah," she brought him up, right? And she didn't remember his name was, and had to fill her in, but it's like holy shit, like a lot of people have been talking about him. He's become very popular ever since. Well, popular, I don't think is quite the right word. He's become well known.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's exactly popular in a lot of circles.
Yeah. Maybe notorious is a good word.
Yeah. Yeah. But I started really paying attention to his work a couple months ago. I don't know, I was bored at work. The job I do is mostly like manual, so I listen to podcasts while I'm there.
Oh, nice.
I think it'd come up in my recommended section, just because YouTube. And there was a bunch of short clips, and in one of them he had mentioned an analysis of Pinocchio. I was really intrigued by that, like, because I just remember Pinocchio as that movie that I kind of didn't really like as a kid, and didn't really like growing up, and anyway. And so I looked it out and discovered his, I think it's a class he actually taught in 2017, Maps of Meaning.
Yes.
Which, from what I understand now, is loosely based on his first book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of which this second book is also, I think he describes it as a primer too.
Yeah.
And I'm not even done listening to that because the entire class is on YouTube. I think I'm like 8 weeks in, 8 episodes in. And it's really fucking good so far.
Yeah.
It's incredible watching him just decode just like the symbology from across cultures, right? Like these very human, what do they call them? Meta narratives.
Yeah. I've watched a couple of his classroom lectures, and I can't remember which one, but there's one student, he like always shows up late for class, and I'm thinking like,
oh yeah,
wait yourself.
You always hear people complaining in the comment section too.
Oh yeah,
that's
like
hilarious.
when a phone goes off. It's usually his phone too. That's the worst part.
Oh god.
Oh my god.
No,
it's so funny.
But I haven't. I mean, he touches on Pinocchio a little bit in the book, but I've watched his lecture on The Lion King, and I thought that was a very fascinating.
Shit, I gotta watch that now.
It's a good one.
I love The Lion King, so it's like, oh, this will be a treat.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, you'll look at it way differently, because after once I watched it, I was like, wow, like I don't know if the animators had this on point or it was just a big accident, but the story that Jordan tells, it's good.
He actually touches on that in the lecture I'd watched. He didn't really delve that deep into it, but he was discussing Mesopotamian and Egyptian kind of creation myths, and he talks about the relation between the Egyptian creation myth and Lion King. How Zazu represents Horus, right? It's the winged creature with the far-seeing eye.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Scar is Set or Seth, right? Mufasa. Shit. I can't remember the name, but anyway, it correlates. There's a correlation between 4 of the main characters in Lion King and Egyptian mythology, basically.
Yeah, and then it also, he takes it to from like a psychological perspective of Simba growing up and how from adolescence to more of adulthood sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it just like when Simba turns into a teenager and he's introduced to Timon and Pumbaa and Hakuna Matata and all of that, and I would just highly recommend it.
Becomes a hippie, grows his hair out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. I haven't heard that one, but I love when he deconstructs Pinocchio, and The Little Mermaid is really compelling, and Sleeping Beauty and Beauty and the Beast. I love that shit. I love when he talks about that. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I want him to do a video on Frozen, like an
Yeah. Yes.
He I don't know if you know about it, but he's briefly touched on it.
Yeah, he has. I want like an hour video of him tearing that movie to shreds.
That would be amazing.
I don't think it would take him an hour, though. That's the thing. Like,
No,
I think the clip I had seen, I think it was pretty sufficient. He's just like, yeah, if you can sum up a movie in one line, it's propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's funny. I don't know if you guys know Nostalgia Critic, but do you remember when he did like the Disney December, where he watched like every animated Disney movie and like reviewed it? Jordan Peterson should do that.
Oh no.
It would be like a lifelong project for him, because each one would be like 4 hours long, but it'd be super awesome.
I think he got like a good 6 hours out of Pinocchio. That's the worst part.
Yeah. Okay, so my second question is, what do you think are the strongest or most resonant parts of the book? Do you find Jordan Peterson most compelling when he's talking about a certain topic? So we were kind of already there.
Yeah. I think he just makes a strong, compelling argument for basically sorting yourself out, get your life together, and pursue meaning. Because if you don't, then basically you're basically choosing between heaven and hell, and if you don't, then you're going down towards hell.
Yeah, that's what's most resonant for me too. Like I've watched the Joe Rogan podcasts with him like probably dozens of times each. Like they're such rewarding viewing if you watch them over and over. Like different parts hit you at different times, and like maybe I'm like really a pathetic person or something, but I love to just like have a couple drinks and then listen to that, like because it gets you deep, I swear. But like I love when he talks about choosing between heaven and hell, and how like if you aim upwards, like and work and get your life together, really amazing things can happen. And he talks about, or if you choose hell, everything backslides and it'll just become like absolute misery. And then Joe Rogan says something like, but people don't choose hell. And Jordan just says, but they do.
Yeah.
And Joe says, well, no, you just let things slide. And Jordan's like, when you're letting things slide. And that, like, hearing that for the first time, honestly, it felt like getting punched in the stomach. Because, like, I am intimately familiar with that feeling of, not living up to your potential and knowing that you can do better. But honestly, really, you are choosing. You are, yeah, right? Like, when you backslide, like, you are choosing that. So it's really, like, I understand what people mean when they call him a father figure, because, like, to have someone tell you, like, you are choosing to fail and you can be so much better than you are, it's such a, like, humbling feeling.
Yeah, and I think it's important, too, to recognize that you have to take personal responsibility for your decisions and actions. And even if you don't consciously mean to do something, but you end up doing it and it turns out bad, you have to sit back and recognize that.
I think it's more than that though. Like it is. It definitely is. You know what you said. Take a personal responsibility for your choices and your actions, but ultimately for yourself and where you're going next. And that's the thing that really bothers me about this. Fuck, this like victim culture you see a lot today. And I'm very familiar with this. You know, I'm a card carrying First Nations. I live in Canada, right? My whole life, especially in regards to the government, there's always been some kind of thing like, oh, we gotta get more of these Indians into school. You know, we gotta get more of these Indians working government jobs, right? All the soft bigotry, low expectations, right? And the fact is, like, even if something really shitty happens to you, it's beyond your control, right? And it knocks you on your ass. You have the choice there. You can sit on your ass and just be defeated, or you can get up and move on. And it really pisses me off watching people choose the first option.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That just reminds me of have you listened to his lecture on the story of Noah and the flood?
I don't think so.
That's a deep it is a really good lecture, and basically he talks about how when the flood is coming, you have to build an ark, and you have to stand up straight with your shoulders back and courageously face chaos and all of that. So you can choose to build the ark, or you can just go down and drown.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of a lot of what a lot of Stoic philosophers say. You know, like they can take it to the extreme of personal responsibility, but like really it's true. The only thing that you can control is your own reaction to things and your own responses and your own plans and your own decisions. So like personal responsibility for like cleaning your room and stuff is important, but also like somebody dies around you,
right?
Like your parent dies, or like your partner dies, or like that's something that's being dealt to you, but you can take responsibility for that and do what you can to make the situation better, or you can lay back and be like, woe is me. So it's not like taking everything on as your fault, but taking good solutions on and stepping up and being the one to be like, I'm gonna fix this. It's so powerful, and there's just like none of that out there today. Like I just did a company thing. Like my work's very corporate and very like, synergy and kind of corporate newspeak. But we've just kind of gotten a corporate overhaul. So I went to this summit today to listen to it, and they were showing us videos made by the company, and the vice president was actually talking to somebody in a video about personal responsibility. And like, I love my company and I love my job. And just seeing that, I was like, oh my God, like I already knew I was in the right place for me. I love working there, but seeing that, I was like, okay, yes, like it would be very easy for this company to be Social Justice Inc.
to cuck to progressive values, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say like what company I work for, but Carlos knows. Like, it would be easy for them, right? Like, female CEO,
totally.
They could suck.
Yeah.
But it was so like empowering to just hear the company say like, you have to take stuff on for yourself, and like the new leadership model and the new like method of promotion is all self-directed. So like it's amazing to see, but it's nowhere else in the world really.
Yeah. Well, and just briefly on Stoicism, Sargon has a really good video on it, and basically ends it with how all these social justice people, they just need to take a class on Stoicism because it's that philosophy just basically you don't have sometimes you don't have control over certain situations, and it all just depends on how you're going to act.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even if you're a social justice warrior and you think the whole world is out to oppress you and all these groups are being oppressed and stuff, so what? Like,
right.
What are you going to do? They want to fix other people. But like, you can't just fix other people. The solution has to be with you.
Right.
And the solution with you isn't to start oppressing the other people. The solution is to start like building yourself up and being courageous and fixing things properly. So that was kind of that question. So my next question is, what rule has helped you most in your life, and what rule would you most like to implement in your life?
Carlos, do you want to start this one off?
Yeah, sure. Well, rule number 1. And see, it's actually a rule I kind of had drilled into me as a teenager, right? I did about 7 years of air cadets, and they're always saying that, shoulders up, back and down, stand tall. And
yeah.
I just always wanted to sit at home and be a gamer my whole life. Well, most of it anyway. And I'm pretty sure air cadets is the only reason I don't have terrible posture right now. But it's getting worse.
That's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
That's very like just the dichotomy between like having to go to air cadets versus wanting to be a gamer. It totally like epitomizes that whole like stepping up versus sliding back. Not that all gamers are sliding back, like, but
Oh yeah, no. There's definitely a couple who are doing very well for themselves.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. It's when you place it like that, yeah, it's definitely it being pushed to be an adult and just like no. I just want to be a boy. I just want to be a kid.
Yeah.
And it's like I like in the first chapter how he doesn't get lost in the woods, but he definitely takes the scenic route to kind of get the point across, right? He touches on crustaceans, he touches on different Bible verses, right?
Yeah.
But I think the heart of it, right, to stand tall and be proud of who you are, right? Just is something that more people should carry throughout their lives. You see a lot of people, they're hunched over, they're looking at their phones, they just they just want the world around them to not exist. It seems anyway. At least of my experience, is anything to judge by. Yeah. No, that's
funny.
Not good.
Since reading the book, I've started to notice people's posture a lot more. And like as a kid, I was always picked on for poor posture, and like I did improve it, but I do start noticing myself
Wait. You were picked on for poor posture?
By my like parents and
okay.
teachers, and like
okay, no,
it was always something
you go to
nagged
school
about.
and they're just like, oh, look at Becky hunched over.
Oh God, that would actually be terrible. But that would make you stand up straight, wouldn't it? But like I do notice it all the time because I have to take transit a lot, and I see such horrible like people that are like crunched in on themselves, and it's like not only is it physically bad for you, like you can see them wanting to hide, and it's like when he tells that story about the woman who he had as a client who came to the mental hospital and wanted to take the sicker patients out with her dog.
Yeah.
And he talks about how hunched over she is and how like she can't even look at people because she's so shy. I see people like that all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary. It's almost like having a
them too.
where you see dead people.
Oh my God.
But you know what I mean, right? Like
it's beyond that too. You'll notice them too if you're like, let's say you're walking towards each other and you're both on the same side of the sidewalk, the same part of the hallway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These are the people who they'll see you 20 feet ahead. Right. Plenty of time.
Yep.
Right away. Out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. It's that's the thing about kind of not just the book itself, but his lectures. He kind of gives you this code, this like lens to look through the world, and a lot of you start noticing a lot of things that you didn't really notice before because of it, and you don't just see it in the people; you see it in yourself.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it is like I kind of find the red pill metaphor cheesy, but like it exists for a reason, right? Like that's totally what it's like. Or it's like putting on glasses, like with the lens aspect, because there are definitely things that I see now that
I would actually rather describe it as almost like taking glasses off, like just like you go indoors, you take off your sunglasses because otherwise everything's dark and you can't see anything.
Okay, that sort of makes sense too, but as somebody who wears glasses,
oh right, yeah, sorry, right, your eyes are broken.
For me, it's like putting on somebody else's glasses and like having the wrong prescription and having my eyes feel like ow, like in pain from looking through the wrong lens. That's kind of what it's like. But like then I put on my own glasses and everything's like totally normal. But it's true. Like I see things like he always talks about people who are anti-human and who talk about overpopulation and how people should stop having kids. And now when I hear that, like I swear, like alarm bells go off in my head, because it's like once you listen to him talk about that, it like you realize how toxic that view actually is.
Yeah, well, just off that point, that was actually kind of one of the reasons why I became disinterested in Bill Maher. I used to watch that show every Friday night, but then I really started thinking about the whole overpopulation argument, and Bill would push that thing quite often, and it just got to the point, and that wasn't like the main reason. A lot of it had to do with the 2016 election too, but yeah.
Isn't Bill is he like very involved in PETA?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Really? That's weird.
I think he's like on the board of PETA LA or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I knew it was like higher up. I just don't exactly know their structure. So,
yeah.
Jeez, that's kind of weird. But like that it's such a toxic viewpoint now. I can't remember if he does it in the book, but I've heard Jordan talk about like how it's not very many steps to go from people shouldn't reproduce to everyone should die. Like it's kind of scary, but I hear it more and more now.
They're in the same neighborhood.
It's really where people are going when they mean that. Like it's a very, very nihilistic, pessimistic outlook, and it's just like I hear people say things like that, and I just think like, wow, like you don't value anything, do you? It's like it seems so extreme, but like that's literally what I think when people say that kind of thing now.
Yeah, and then the common argument tends to be like, oh, we have to save the planet, or we're a burden on the planet or something. And it just reminds me of George Carlin's argument when he talks about global warming, where he basically says the planet is fine, the people are fucked.
Yeah, the planet will survive. It will move on.
Right. If you look at the history of the planet, we've been here for a very small period of time.
Yeah,
it's always just very weird when people they have that viewpoint. They think that humans aren't a part of nature, right? They think that nature itself has this finely tuned balance. It's this paradise. Nothing bad happens.
Yeah,
right? They've never watched. They've never watched like a cat tear into a bird.
Right.
Like they don't. It's this very weird and idealized view of nature.
Sure, and then and go on to say like, oh, we're gonna save it and everything, and it's like you can't even take care of your common man, and you're gonna save the planet. Like, okay, good luck with it.
PETA kills like something, was it like 90% of the animals they save, quote save. Their euthanization rates are almost as high as Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh my god, that was amazing.
No, it's ridiculous. There have been cases where they kidnap like pets off of patios when no one's looking.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard that. That's terrifying.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, by the time the family manages to get through all the bureaucracy and find out what happened to their pet, oh, we didn't have space for it, and we had to put it down. It's for the better.
Yeah, that's fucked.
You know, whenever people go like, oh, what if we just, grew beef in labs? You know, we wouldn't, then cows could be free. Like, oh wow, you really want to kill off all the cows, don't you?
Yeah.
They can't fucking survive in the wild. You see how fucking floppy their ears are?
Like, it's so true. And like anyone who doubts that, like I have a Shih Tzu. Like I know just from owning my stupid dog that like it's too late.
Oh yeah.
It's too late for him. Like,
yeah.
No. He has been bred to be like a lump that is kind of nice to me. Like that's his purpose. Like, can you imagine turning that loose? Like that's a greater tragedy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, my ragdoll as well. Same thing. He's a ball of fluff and fat and affection. And
yeah.
You put him outside in the wild, and the first thing he cuddles up against is going to eat him.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes I make jokes about it, about like setting my dog free. I'll just be like, okay, well, bye, and just imagine him like eating grass until he pukes and dies. Like.
Well, you had a good run.
Yeah, he's not capable of hunting for the meat that he needs to survive. Can you imagine? That would be so sad. Anyway, so Scott, what rule has helped you most, and what would you most like to implement?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I want to just touch on Rule 1 really quick because when he came down to Long Beach, that was the rule that he spoke on.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it too was having the courage to speak to power, and basically the idea that, you know what, on some level we are all stupid, but we have to be able to think. But the only way we can be able to think is if we have conversations, and that means we're going to have conversations that aren't going to be popular. They're going to possibly be uncomfortable. We're going to talk about things that some people might not want us to talk about. And it's also, so basically he touched on that too, that was a part of the rule. And I didn't, I would probably have to read the rule again I guess not, since I heard him say it, but I didn't pick up on it the first time. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective that he had to share about that rule. But for me, it would probably be Rule 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Yeah.
Just because it makes sense. I guess I can give you an example of like today where I went to the dentist and the dentist said, "Hey, Scott, you have a couple of cavities." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." And so now I'm basically implementing the advice in Rule 2 where I'm going to have to negotiate with myself and say, all right, are you willing to like go to the bathroom sink? Yes. Are you willing to get out some floss? Yes. Are you willing to floss your teeth? And, you know, it just go on that route so I can have healthy teeth. So that one. And I also like his analysis on the nature of chaos and how it's feminine, and how it's like the ultimate selector when it comes to or it's the ultimate force when it comes to sexual selection.
Yeah.
You know, and I have never even thought about like from an evolutionary perspective how devastating it is when there's like a breakup or a woman decides not to choose a man, and basically it's like, nah, sorry, your genes aren't worthy.
That is actually one of the things I've highlighted right now, and I had, I sent it to some friends because, of course, it's Jordan Peterson, and he phrases it in a very Jordan Peterson way, and it's absolutely amazing. And I captioned it. You ever wonder what it's like to be friend zoned by Jordan B. Peterson? And It's absolutely awful, but
Do you want to share it? Do you have it?
I do have it. If you give me 1 second.
Share it so the listeners know what we're talking about.
There we go. Okay, here we go. Well, Bucko, you're good enough for a friend, but my experience of you so far has not indicated the suitability of your genetic material for continued propagation.
Oh my god.
That would be absolutely fucking devastating to hear.
Yeah, it would.
Totally. Oh my god. The memes are like the best part. I send my dad Jordan Peterson memes all the time. So great. Because he doesn't really understand memes.
I just discovered some of them, and I think they might be my favorite ever. It's like basically pictures of thoughts, but he's over top of it. It's just like, no, Bucko, this is a path to destruction.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Clean your room. There's a bunch of them.
That's so good.
What about for you, Rebecca?
Okay. Well, there's a couple, but so I've read the book on paper, and I also just finished rereading it via audiobook, which I completely recommend because he reads the audiobook, and I love having audiobooks for like the bus and walking and stuff. And it was just like having a friend like give you advice all that time. It was so great. But during Rule 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. When I read that the first time, it was good and it hit me and I liked it, but I kind of, moved on. But listening to it on audio and hearing him, he gets very, very close to tears while reading the audio and talking about meaning and how it comes from responsibility, and how, he talks about how like when someone close to you dies, you have to be strong enough to hold everybody else around you up. And as like the whole basically like last half of that chapter, as he's reading it, you can, when his voice gets to where you can hear the tears like about to brim over, he's at that point for most of it. And I listened to it on the bus, like late at night coming home from work. And I was just completely like lost in his voice and in what he was talking about. And like, I have a long bus ride home and I usually sit there hating it the whole time. But I was just like, I felt like I'd been transported. And it just made me think about meaning, and like it was just so intense. And I've always been the kind of person to kind of run from responsibility and run from work and effort. I'm extremely low in conscientiousness. But lately, like the past 6 months or so, I've kind of been taking a more active view of things and thinking more along the lines of like, if it's something I don't want to do, that probably means I should do it. So that's kind of how I got to where I am in the Liberalists. Like, I just was in the group, and anytime opportunities came to me, they would always scare me. And I would always think like, oh, I'm busy at work, I have books to write and like deadlines and all this stuff. But I kept thinking like, I should probably say yes to this. And the same things happened at work. And I've since been like promoted a couple times, and I have all these opportunities coming my way. And it's like, it's really, really like flipped things around. Just thinking that like meaning comes from responsibility, and like I can cast that off if I want, and I can just have like the cushy life that I think that I want, but I'm not going to get anywhere. And like, I was the kind of person who for so many years, like never really got ahead and just kind of complained about it and like stewed about it. But I never actually really did anything. Like, it's amazing to think back and be like, holy crap, I spent so many years being like so sad and so depressed, but I never did anything about it. It's so weird to me now. But now I just keep saying yes and taking things on. And like, it's fine. I can handle it, and things get better because of it. So like that chapter really like crystallizes that.
Yeah, and well, like just yesterday, when I saw your post about this conversation, I thought to myself like, okay, you can go ahead and kind of step out of your comfort zone in a way and just have a conversation with two people that you've never met before, and
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna listen to the video, and probably halfway through you're gonna think to yourself, "Damn it, Scott, why didn't you message Rebecca and say you wanted to be in the video?" And so that's why. And but also, I think it's in rule 7. Is that the one when he goes over the creation of the social contract?
I have the book here. Let me
When he talks about the mammoth, do you guys remember that?
Oh,
I thought that was
oh yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah, I think I remember that part where he talks about how humanity kind of discovered sacrificing to the future.
Yes. I thought that was. I mean, obviously that's not, and he makes it clear that this was kind of like his way of explaining it. But I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Well, I don't know if you guys know the book *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. It's kind of a famous history book, but it's kind of about the history of humankind from like Australopithecus all the way to today. And he talks about how humans are like the only animals who have discovered that if you make sacrifices today, tomorrow will be better. And that's how we've gotten to where we are. And it's through that. And then like when Jordan talks about mammoth and like, if you kill a mammoth now and you give some of its meat to your neighbor, then you'll get meat in return in the future. It's like, it's very much that. And that's kind of how we ended up inventing like monetary systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all based on social trust. And that's a really good book too, but it's very much like the same idea. And that's actually what drives us forward. And you have to make risks in order to discover that, really. Like, we have to reinvent the wheel for every person who's like born and lives in the world. It's really weird.
Sure. Yeah. I just I just always the whole thing about like it gives the person, like someone you don't know, the opportunity to do something and show them or to show themselves or you like how good of a person they are. So if you're moving into a new neighborhood and you ask your neighbor for a favor, the neighbor can either say yes or no. And if the neighbor says no, like, okay, yeah, that's probably not going to be a good relationship.
Mm.
If you're asking for help. And so, and just thinking about how this social contract kind of like binds us all together. That could be a separate video in and of itself. But yeah, I really enjoy thinking about that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard once that like the best way to, I can't remember how it was phrased. It's like the best way to make progress with somebody or to impress somebody or to make a connection with somebody is to ask them for a favor.
Right.
Not to like ingratiate yourself to them, but to ask them for something. Because, and that's so true. Like just thinking about my like work life and career and stuff. If somebody comes to me for help, like I go out of my way to help them because I'm like, oh my God, this person asked me, like they trusted me with this.
Exactly.
And like that's totally how like bonds are forged. Anyway, next question is, oh, this will be fun. Do you find Jordan Peterson's interpretation of Christianity to be correct or illuminating? Do you agree with him in his general religious interpretations? Why or why not?
Anyone want to start this off, or you okay if I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, this is the one thing where it has really opened my my way of looking at things, especially when it comes to Christianity. Because growing up, I guess you can say I kind of started off with the whole hating on like the extreme religious right, because they were always trying to like impose their views on society and taking away personal freedom and liberty and all of that. And but then Jordan offers like a different interpretation where it's not for example, like the story of the ark, Noah and the flood. There's a common truth there. It's not like there was this guy that lived to be like 600 some years old and he built a boat by himself and 2 of every animal came. No, there's a truth, and I don't see how it's any different than like modern storytelling or just watching a movie where you watch this and you go, okay, there's something there that I can relate to. So, and I'm not sure if that's exactly how Jordan is describing it, but I think there's something deeper than just the surface. And some atheists, including myself, I kind of like pushed the whole Christianity thing out of the way and just took the stories at face value as if it was like some sort of historical documentation of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And so I have Jordan Peterson to thank for that he's actually, I'm more interested in learning about Christianity now than I was 5 or 6 years ago. So,
well, it's interesting to hear. For myself, with Jordan Peterson and Christianity, the thing was I was raised Christian. First in a Pentecostal church. Well, actually, Rebecca, we already had this conversation, I remember. And later in a Baptist church. And basically, as soon as I got the choice to not go to church, like any teenager, of course, I took up on that offer and didn't. And I ended up kind of deconverting myself, per se, just through arguments online with atheists. And because the thing for me, my value was I wanted to know what was true. I wanted to find the truth. And my whole life I'd been told the truth was in the Bible. And as you see more and more, it's in a literal sense, it's not there. It's not an accurate historical text.
Right.
And then I kind of compromised on it. Like, well, there's some good values in there. There's some good lessons in there. And ended up, dropping the label. But I still recognize the cultural significance of it. And so Jordan talks a lot about how there's things you know, but you don't realize you know until you have it vocalized to you. That's kind of been my entire experience with him when he talks about the Bible and the significance of different stories, what they mean, how they apply to everyone. Like the story of Elijah, for example, right? I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Bible, but Elijah was a prophet, and if we're describing historical terms, I guess he would have been a rebel in Israel when the king had married what do they call them? Philistine queen, Jezebel. Right? She's the main antagonist of his story. And I'm sure you could just delve right into it, but at its heart, basically the story of Elijah is the story of a man who sticks to his guns in face of opposition when everyone in power around him is like, no, you're wrong. This is the way things are. But it's a guy who knows deep in his heart that he's right and sticks to it. And I found that inspiring. And it's one of many stories that have kind of always stuck with me, despite the fact that I'm not religious. But I think the long and short of it is, if everyone approached their faith the way Jordan B. Peterson did, I would have no issues with any of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
For him, it's personal. It's not a way for it's the crutch he leans on, right? And that's one of my favorite metaphors with religion, because I have a rather tyrannical uncle who I've witnessed on more than a few occasions using his, well, first it was religion, and now it's his new religion, social justice.
Oh my God.
Yes, yeah. To berate and beat and keep his family in line, right? For him, religion wasn't a crutch; it was the cane he whipped his kids with.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, it's interesting. I really like it. I don't know. I'm just going to repeat myself, so I'll pass the mic to you, Rebecca.
Cool. I'm pretty much like Scott, where I mentioned that I was really into new atheism. That was a couple of years ago now, but I was not raised religiously. I was baptized into the Danish Lutheran tradition, but just because of my grandparents. Never went to church growing up at all. Was my parents were pretty deeply suspicious of it, so I always kind of grew up cynical and kind of like joking about it. But towards the end of high school, I became really close with a classmate, and she's now my like best friend in the world. We've been best friends for like about 12 years now. Who is a very, very staunch Baptist, and she was like right from the beginning when I knew her, and she was always that weird religious girl in the class because, you know, growing up on the West Coast, especially in Canada, religious people are pretty much like very, very small minority in most places. And but I became really close friends with her, and over the years she would teach me stuff about the Bible and about what she believed, and I always found it super interesting. But when I got into like new atheism, I kind of became more like, God is dumb about it, and it was like super cringe. Like I hate thinking about it now. But and she mellowed out over time. Like she moved out of her like family's home and became more like regular. But so we kind of moved together towards more like moderate stuff. And then I got into Jordan Peterson, and for a long time when I listened to him, I would discount his religious opinions, and I would just be like, it's silly, you know, switch videos to something else. And it's funny, I get this feeling in my mind when I'm listening to something that I know I should be listening to, where I don't want to listen to it anymore. You know, like you can sense when something is going to challenge your views, and you get like all up in arms about it.
You're happy.
and I've gotten good at recognizing that with myself. So I got to a point, I did this with Milo Yiannopoulos too. I always like hated him, and then I realized that I hated him because I should probably be listening to him. I don't love him, but you know, I felt like I had to take that risk. So I did that with Jordan Peterson, and when he started describing religions as meta-narratives and stories and talking about the Bible as a piece of literature, that's when it really, really clicked for me, because I'm a writer. And I was always the kind of person who was like, yeah, the Bible's not a literal history. Ha, that means it's dumb. And like knowing how stories work, you can't just build an entirely new story from nothing. It won't work. Like you can do it, but no one will want to read it. It's not going to resonate with anybody. It's not going to go anywhere. And so thinking about the Bible like that, like really, really changed things for me, because yes, it was written by humans. I don't believe it was divinely inspired, but stories don't stick around that long if they don't mean something.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So
I kind of I look at it in the divine sense that, as Jordan Peterson would describe as aiming up towards being.
yeah.
If that's your version of God, then I can fully accept that. And yeah. I think also it's kind of interesting to me where the conversations that I've had with Christians in the past, they don't ever say like, no, Scott, that's not really what the story's about. It's actually about this. And then they'll give like a psychological Jordan Peterson explanation on what it is. It's kind of like, this is what happened. And I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of wonder, like in these Bible study classes, do they actually like go this deep where they kind of focus on the individual and trying to move up and preparing yourself for chaos and
I don't know if they really do, or
yes
like
and no.
most of them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yes and no.
Yeah.
It depends on who's teaching and what you're studying exactly. Oftentimes, you do hear a lot of things like there's. Sorry, I have a kid right there right now.
That's okay.
You have a lot of. Okay, for example, there's like this old I think it's a parable, and it's like the story of these two men who build their houses, right? And one is lazy. He builds his house on sand, right?
Yeah.
And he's got this nice house. He's proud of it, right? So he's got his nice little sandy house. And there's the next guy, and he, busts his ass, carves, builds his house on a foundation of rock that he has to like level out from scratch and everything, right? It takes him a lot longer. It's not as big. It's not as nice. But when the rains come, the guy builds his house on sand, washed away, whereas the guy who has his house on a steady foundation, right, it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure even now the wheels in your head is turning is you understand the application, right?
Yeah.
Well, right. And I think that's Jordan's point, is that there is a common truth in whatever variation of the story, because I'm sure there's like 100 cultures out there that has a different version of that story. But it all comes down to this common truth. And once I look at it from that perspective, it just opened up my way of looking at it.
Yeah, totally. And the friend that I mentioned, my best friend, who's super religious, she actually works in a church now. She leads women's Bible studies, and she like writes out like her lessons and does these enormous like whole like binders full of like manuscripts of Bible study material. So I should actually like ask her and like see if I can read some of that stuff, because that would be interesting. Like I would like, although I don't believe in a supernatural creator, I think it would be really interesting to do a Bible study like that, that's more centered on like psychological and like metaphorical meaning.
I think depending on the church, they might even have their like an actual curriculum that they're supposed to follow.
Yeah, she's in like the southern states, so she's in like this, it's so crazy, the churches down there. Like I've been to visit her, and like her church is like a civic center. Like it's multiple buildings. It's like a whole community. It's like this crazy Texas church. But yeah, she like writes out their curriculum. It's amazing. So next question is, did 12 Rules for Life live up to your expectations? Did it make you more or less of a fan? So going from like lectures to actually reading his book, what were your thoughts?
For me, I noticed that there was definitely some similarities between his lectures and what he writes in the book. Like there would be like certain sections where I was like, oh, I know what this video where this is from and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed reading it. It's definitely going to be one of those books where I'm going to reference later on in life, especially like I start having kids and stuff. I'm probably going to read Rule 5 like 5 times.
Oh yeah, totally.
So yeah, it lived up to my expectations. That's for sure.
Yeah, mine too. I actually love how it's written and how you can hear his voice come through in his words. Like just some of the turns of phrase, and like I love how he actually used smiley faces, and like
that was something I really liked.
I saw that. That was crazy.
It's so cute. I love it. It's so funny, and like you can totally see his face. Like, I love that. But I think it's a really great introduction to his views, and to just like it's a really, really great stepping stone for regular people. And so I work in a bookstore, and it's actually been in the top 20 of our top selling books since it came out. And yeah, so it's really amazing to get to see people pick it up, and I've recommended it to people coming in looking for books to get them through hard times. And like I had a woman whose son his son died, so her grandson died. And her son hasn't gotten over it. It's been a couple of years. And so I kind of led her over to, we have like a small grieving section, but I had this thought in the back of my mind, like, I think she would like 12 Rules, and I think her son would like it. So I kind of talked to her a little more, and eventually I was like, okay, I think I have a book that you should read. And I like kind of gave her the pitch, and I mentioned Rule 12. And the second I mentioned like the title of the rule, which is like pet a cat when you meet one in the street, her eyes just lit up. And like, even though like it sounds so crazy for that to be the advice you give to someone who's been dealing with the death of their child, but I just like saw in her eyes that it was the thing that she needed. And it was like, that was like the high point of my like entire career. But I love seeing people pick this up.
Yeah, there's definitely something in it for everybody.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, even if it's just one rule, that one rule can go a long way.
Yeah, and you never know, like maybe they need one rule now, but
Right.
maybe another rule will like start the dominoes falling, and then it'll lead them to something else. And like it's that kind of book, totally. And I also recommended it to a woman who had like 6 kids, and she was like homeschooling them all, and she was asking for a parenting book about homeschooling. And I was like, I showed her them, but I was like, I think you also need this. And like, I also think that was a perfect book for her. It's like, it's so versatile, and I think so many people need it.
I think the bottom line is there's a lot of broken people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There really
for sure.
is. And the book is almost like a primer to putting your life back together, or putting it together for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I had an interesting experience, because at the same time as reading it, I was also listening to his Maps and Medium lectures, and like Scott had brought up, you see a lot of recurring themes, and even the same topic, but it's always interesting because it usually brings it up in a different way. You hear a bit more about it that you didn't hear before.
Yeah.
Like he brings up, I think it was his nephew a lot, how his nephew was having these nightmares about like fire-breathing midgets or something like that, dwarves. And they were coming out the maw of a dragon, right? And he didn't know what to do, because they just kept coming and overwhelming him. And then he kind of walks his nephew through, because he realizes his nephew's basically having this fear of, like, I can't remember exactly verbatim, but it's a story he tells quite a few times and references quite a few times, both in the book and in his lectures as well. So.
Cool. So the next question is, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but it's, if you're a fan, how have his ideas changed your life? Who were you before and who are you now?
Yeah, well, basically for me, it would be the willingness to listen to explanations on Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been the most valuable thing that I've gotten from him so far. Because I would just write it off and say, I'm not going to waste my time. But now that I understand that it's actually a lot deeper, and it can be more fulfilling in your life, and you can actually learn a lot from it. That for me has definitely changed the way I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Along those lines, I actually went at the end of June. I went to the first conversation with Jordan and Sam Harris, and I can't wait till they put them all up, because like people are gonna, it's gonna like make some waves when they come out. But it was not only was it really entertaining, and like the whole room was dead silent the entire time, and everyone was on that ride, like the conversational ride through all these ideas. it just made me think, like, since I have a much kinder view of Christianity now, it made me really sad for Sam Harris's fans. Like, it sounds kind of sad because I was one, and I do really like him. But he's so literal minded, and his fans are they're doing the thing that I used to do, you know, like where an idea is brought up, and like I had a guy behind me who was literally like, and like rolling his eyes and laughing when Jordan would talk about certain things. And I was like, I was annoyed, but I was also just like, that is so sad. Like, just that you aren't willing to listen to something.
Right, and that used to be me when it came to topics on religion. It was that's just how my attitude was.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. And I was like that with a lot of things too. Like I mentioned Milo. Like even when I was into Sargon and started coming into more of the anti-SJW side, I guess, Milo was always like a thorn in my side where I was like, I hate that guy. He's so, you know, like racist and right wing and stuff. And like just learning to get over myself and actually listen to people has been such a useful thing that I've learned.
Yeah. Well, it was like I was telling you earlier when Milo came to the university that I went to.
Yeah.
I went and listened to him talk, and even though I don't agree with everything that he has to say, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, it's Halloween and it's Milo, so this is going to be outrageous. And sure enough, he comes out in a Catholic priest costume.
Oh my God.
He has an open casket and it says Hollywood on it. And this is when the whole Kevin Spacey thing was going down and Harvey Weinstein and everything.
Oh my God, that's great.
It's just hilarious. And, you know, I mean, definitely that being there in the room with a ton of Trump supporters was interesting because you have this idea from the media where, you know, they're a bunch of racists and everything else. And honestly, that's just not the case at all. These were just a lot of guys that wanted to come out and have fun. And it wasn't just men either. It was women also.
Yeah.
But yeah. So just going out there and listening to different perspectives is very helpful.
Yeah, and like I would always kind of have this wall up where I was like, I don't want anyone to, you know, like make me change my mind about my little beliefs. Like I don't know if you know the Louis C.K. bit about beliefs, where he talks about, he's like, they're my beliefs, and he like pretends he's like holding and petting a small animal. He's like, I just have them, they're my beliefs. It's so true. Like people do have these little pet beliefs that they don't want to be disturbed or anything. And so like learning to let myself be open to new ideas, like even if my mind isn't changed, maybe my beliefs will still be my beliefs. But like listening, like I can't believe I never used to do this, but it's so important.
And it's interesting too how like the topic of Gamergate kind of brought a lot of people together. It was all over video games, you know. It's like, feminists, stay out of our goddamn video games.
Yeah, I know. That's the biggest thing. Like, if feminists had just left, you know, video games alone,
yeah,
most of this wouldn't have happened. It seems.
Yeah.
But they couldn't resist. They found out video games were a multi-billion-dollar industry, made more money than Hollywood, and all of a sudden they all wanted to be indie darlings, and then for some reason sexual assault claims just skyrocket.
Right.
I don't know if it's the male feminists, the female ones, but you know.
Right.
It's so funny. When Gamergate was happening, I was still like deeply uninformed about stuff. I didn't really know about it, but I had two coworkers who were big nerds and big gamers, and they would talk about it at work. And I had just kind of heard peripheral things from kind of like feminist outlets. And like I remember this one conversation I had where I literally was telling my coworker that it was about sexism and it wasn't about ethics in games journalism. And I remember those words coming out of my mouth, and it makes me laugh so hard now because I had no idea what I was talking about. Oh my god, it's hilarious. I was such an idiot, but I was like, it's about sexism. Like, oh my god, cringe.
It's amazing too, because like shortly after like about a year or so after Gamergate started, most people went, yeah, we accomplished what we set out to do. Because at that point, I think it was all of them actually at that point of the games journos outlets had ethics policies. You know, the Escapist, Polygon, Kotaku, etc.
Yeah.
Right, and I was like, well, that's what we wanted. So you know, let's go home. And you know, that's when Jim, at the time Internet Aristocrat, now Mr. Medicare, that's when he threw a shit fit. It's, you know, Sargon started to take off. I think,
yeah,
I think Sargon emerged from Gamergate like one of the best. I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And completely on his own merit, really. But
yeah,
it's thinking back to where everyone who was involved in it, you know, you have Mundane Matt. I'm happy for him. You know, he's starting a family. He's got his YouTube channel. He still does.
Yeah.
It's not terribly successful. But and then you have almost every single one of like the prominent male feminists on the other side who are they're engaged in some kind of scandal, be it child porn or, you know, alleged rape. Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
For a movement about sexism, or, you know, sorry, about harassing women in the gaming, surprisingly few allegations of like sexual harassment. I think the worst was Ralph Retord, and he got arrested because fucking cop woke him up at an airport and he was drunk and punched him.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I just remember it was just such a wild time because at the time I was like working graveyard shifts at a convenience store. So like I just plug my headphones in and start like mopping the floor or whatever, and I had somehow stumbled upon Medicare's videos, him and Mundane Matt as well, because it was that's what kicked it off, right? Was Mundane Matt did a video about Zoe Quinn, and he had used a still image from the promotional material for her game Depression Quest.
Yeah.
And on that grounds, she just filed a false DMCA claim to get the video taken down because he was discussing the forum post her ex-boyfriend had made, basically recounting essentially his abuse at her hands.
Yeah.
And she didn't want that getting out, and that's kind of kicked it all off. It snowballed from there because basically a lot of people knew or could see very clearly what was going on. You had this very shady indie game developer, and for some reason, every single game's news outlet was taking her side on the issue, was even considering the idea that she could have been wrong, or she could have been in the wrong. And it continued. Happened to the Fine Young Capitalists. They were trying to get a game jam together. They wanted to basically where they would take idea submissions from female game creators. I think basically if you submitted the winning idea, you got X amount of the profits from it just for having the idea, and it would only go to a woman, right? I think the Fine Young Capitalists actually were self-described feminists, but because Zoe Quinn was trying to do something similar, she went after them and doxed them and tried to get. I think she actually did get their game jam shut down. And every single games journalist they talked to were just like, no, we're not interested in hearing this. And the ones who did ran it from her perspective. It was crazy. It was a really wild time.
Oh, it was. And I don't have you either of you read Milo's book, Dangerous?
I haven't read it though.
Oh, he has a chapter on Gamergate.
Of course he does.
It's so great because it threw me back to those days of like.
Oh yeah, those days when the worst thing you could think of was Sam Biddle, you know, to bring back bullying. We thought that was the worst of them.
Yeah, it was. Oh god, but it was just interesting because like, you know, Anita Sarkeesian, right? She raises all this money for some stupid project, and then she completely exceeds the amount that she wanted to raise. And I don't even think, has she even finished that project after all?
No.
She abandoned it. She raised 6 times what she asked for, and she abandoned it.
Such a charlatan, man.
Oh
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's the worst thing about it to me, because I was a sort of fan of hers a little bit. Like, I was not really paying attention, but I watched her videos every now and again. And I remember like hearing about the series, and I was like, oh, I'll watch that when it happens. And then it never happened. So I can't even imagine what the actual fans of hers think.
I don't think she actually had fans. If you look at her
True.
reviews now, it's like,
Yeah, it's a dead channel.
Yeah, it's with her. If you're a complete normie, you don't know anything about video games. These things sound like they could be true. They sound plausible, and she's at least asserting it confidently enough that you think, oh, she probably knows what she's talking about.
And her videos were well made, like for the time, and like for the fact that it was like a pretty small operation. They looked pretty good, so that it was like impressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. You it's amazing how much time and effort you can save by not actually playing the video games and just stealing Let's Play footage from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. Actually, the one time it seems like she did actually play, or maybe it was Jonathan. Basically, the objective is to sneak past these strippers, and she walks in and just straight up murders both of them. And you can see points being deducted for doing that. She's like, "Oh, the game encourages you to kill strippers." It's like...
That's so funny.
Well, yeah, and what's interesting too, and I think this can also segue to the last question also, but when it's fascinating to see a video such as hers that had it was high production value to a certain extent, and then you just have like Sargon black and white picture and demolish
his old sound quality.
Oh yeah, he's sitting there with a gaming headset.
And that's just how it is. And like with today, you know, with the mainstream media and everything else, just kids in front of their computer, they're recording and they're taking down these talking points from the mainstream media. And it's no different where, like, when you hear people say, oh, like all these talking heads say, oh, Jordan Peterson's a cult leader. And we can just get together and have a Google Hangout and just say, no, you guys are full of shit, and here's why.
Yeah, totally. And like, do you guys watch Tim Pool?
No. Yeah, he's like the independent journalist, right? That goes around. Yeah.
Yeah, he does on the ground reporting, but even like every single day he posts at least like 2 or 3 videos between his 2 channels where he just goes through news stories. It's just like a 10-minute video. And it's literally just a dude in front of a camera talking and reading a news article, but he completely demolishes their bullshit. It's really amazing to watch. Like, I really recommend his channels. It's funny because he's such a like mellow, middle of the road kind of guy. Like, as a journalist, like a proper journalist, he considers both sides, and then he kind of goes between them, doesn't really betray much of what he actually thinks. But you can tell that he's just such a normal person that so much of the madness going on just kind of astounds him. It's a really great channel to watch.
I think I've seen one of his videos and where he was taking apart an article that I think had been done about Jordan Peterson or about Sargon.
Yeah.
Oh, the intellectual dark web one. That was the one.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I would probably enjoy his videos because I definitely enjoyed that one. I really liked when he pointed at the beginning. He points out how the headline was a question.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that can safely be answered with no, because if you had enough evidence to answer in the affirmative, it would have been a statement. Right. And even just that little thing made me kind of reevaluate and think about the way I look at the news, especially like headlines. You know, do vaccines cause autism?
Yeah. If they did, you would just be saying vaccines cause autism. Yeah, he's like being a real journalist, and he's worked for Vice, Fusion, like a bunch of big outlets. Like he when he reads a story, he goes through all that stuff. He's like, oh, this is a trick they use when they want to imply that it is, but it's not. And it's actually it's a great channel. He's such a good commentator and reporter. But of course, he's the guy that got pushed out of the industry.
Right.
The Kyle Kalinske of journalism.
Yeah, totally.
But it really annoys me when I hear all these, you know, left-wing journalists go out there and just totally bash Jordan Peterson, and they don't even address what he has to say.
No, they never do.
They never do. And did you watch the Monk debate?
Yes.
Okay, and there's that lady from the failing New York Times, and she talks about like, oh, he doesn't want women to wear makeup or whatever in the workplace, and he's like, no, I did not say that, and she's like, yeah, look it up, Google it. It's like, well, actually, I can Google it, and you are fucking wrong. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things I really like about him too, is he has the patience, right, to hold his composure and say, no, that's not what I meant. Here's what I meant, or that's not what I said. Here's what I said.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know what? I know if I was in that position, I'd probably just get pissed off and like, oh, well, fuck you too.
Right.
Which is terrible optics.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like unafraid to take an idea that sounds horrible or might be unpopular and like do a measured analysis and go through and weigh it from both sides and then decide, rather than leading off with, oh, this makes me feel bad, so it's bad.
Yeah.
It's such a basic thing and like a proper standpoint, but like no one's doing it.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. We live in an interesting timeline, that's for sure.
Jesus Christ, I'll say.
Yeah.
Canada's got a drama teacher for prime minister. America's got a reality TV show for president.
Oh, it's so bad.
London's basically on fire.
Yeah. Anyway, last question is Jordan Peterson a cult leader?
No.
I don't think so, but I think he has the potential to be.
Oh yeah. Do you remember I don't remember which interview it was, but it was after the Kathy Newman thing went down. And he said in an interview like that he's had thoughts where he's like, if I wanted to, I could have that building burnt down.
Yeah, like, I know that one because it was chopped up and turned into an amazing video.
Yeah, I was like, I was
yeah, he's just like, because my life is characterized by suffering.
Right.
And if I wanted to, I could have my trolls burn BBC down. There'd be nothing but broken glass and burning buildings. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. It's so true though. Like he talks about like the shadow and stuff, and like that's oh my god, it's so true. I've talked about it before with like some friends of mine, like at a like night of drinking. I had a friend who is a Jordan Peterson fan, so we kind of like went off into the corner and had too many drinks and like just talked about this kind of thing. But I kind of like was talking about the idea of the shadow and how it's like different for women from men, like because his was a very like masculine type of manifestation of a shadow. But mine, I was just thinking like, I think about it all the time, how like if I really wanted to, like if I was a vengeful kind of person who wanted to hurt somebody, I could just call the cops and be like, this person sexually assaulted me. And like that could be the end of their life.
Yeah,
like
especially like if you two were in a room alone together.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like I would never ever do that, but just thinking about how possible it would be, and if I let myself be that way, I could be that way. It's so scary, but
yeah. I mean, like, have you ever walked
you
across
actively
a bridge?
have to fight it. Yeah.
Like, you know, when you walk across a bridge, I'm pretty sure it's inevitable. At one point, you look over that bridge and think to yourself, what would happen if I just jumped right now?
Yeah, I have that all the time.
Yeah, it's... What was that? South Park, the movie, bigger, longer, uncut, whatever, right? Have you guys ever watched that?
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is one of my favorites. It's actually one of those movies where if I'm ever in a bad mood, I can just put that on, and I will, I'll be happy by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a song at the end, and it's called "Through the Eyes of a Child." And of course, because it's Matt and Trey, it's a bit satirical, but there's also a lot of truth in it, right? And the song basically what the message of it, what it says is like, oh, through the eyes of a child, like everything is happy and pure and nice, and they haven't yet realized what assholes they are. Right, one of the lines is actually they haven't realized the darkness inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like
Yeah.
you don't know your own capacity for evil. And that's one of the things I think about, right? Especially with my son, it's just like he's such a little bundle of joy right now. Okay, like he's 18 months, right? He's happy, adorable, playful. Yeah, he has his mood swings, but it's just like he could grow up to be a complete and utter asshole. He could grow up to be one of the worst kinds of people out there. It's like, oh fuck, you know. But like you would never, I would have never known how he is now. But
yeah, that must be crazy.
Well, a lot of it too is making sure like a child is well socialized. Because when Jordan talks about the concept of play,
no, I'm very familiar with his
no, that's
work regarding child rearing.
Yeah, it's so cool, and how like you can look at the animal kingdom for all examples of play and how important play is. But to address the question, I find it hard to accept the notion of being a cult leader when the guy is talking about improving yourself as an individual.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's kind of exactly why he would be able to. Like a lot of cults focus on that. They focus on reaching a higher plane. Like
that's true. Like, have you guys heard of Wild Wild Country? It's a documentary series on Netflix.
No, I have not.
It was really, really like popular when it came out, and I watched it. It's a 6-part series about the Rajneeshi cult in like the 60s and 70s. It was like this guru, this Indian like yogi guru, kind of became really prominent, and it ended up in this cult where they like they were armed. There was like a plot to poison somebody. Like a guy almost died. People were like actively oppressed, and it was just this horrible thing. And he's a self-help guru, and you can see his books in bookstores. Like his name is Osho, and you walk into any bookstore, and like the self-help shelves are full of Osho books.
Wait,
but like I had, the documentary is called Wild Wild Country, and the guy's name is Osho, Osho.
No, it's because I know in God Is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, Christopher Hitchens touches on a number of cults. I think that might have been one of them.
I think so, because he reported on them at the time, in the 80s when he was a journalist, he reported on them. He's in the documentary that shows his clips. But it's a crazy story, and it started off in like a very self-help kind of way. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't think like when he talks about pursuing meaning, meaning can be different for each of us. So I don't know how you can really form a cult when everybody's different idea of meaning. Does that make sense?
True, and like when he talks about meaning, he talks about in your own life and with your family, and so if he actually was alt-right, like people say that he is, he would be talking about meaning as like a more societal thing. Right. You know, he would be like, you have to work for the good of the white race or whatever. Yeah. So that's where it would be more dangerous. But I think he does his best to keep it absolutely like localized.
Yeah. So as you've probably seen, or no, Scott's seen.
Oh yeah.
I posted a picture of a tattoo someone got in the chat, and that's a tattoo of Jordan Peterson. You know, underneath it, this Veritas bucko. Right. Now, I want you to try and get in the headspace of someone who found his work so inspiring, so helpful, so meaningful. It spoke to them on such a level that they got his face tattooed on what looks like their arm. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's
a little, and I think he recognizes. Yeah. I think he recognizes that that's a problem.
Yeah, it's approaching the same playing field. I'm not going to say I'm not trying to say, oh, slippery slope, he could become. No, I'm saying like the potential is there. Like he speaks to people on such a deep level. I listen to his work, and it's absolutely incredible. It really is. He tells you things you know, but you didn't realize you knew.
Well, yeah, and it's cool too. Like when you go to one of his lectures, I mean, for the two times that I went, Dave Rubin opened, and you know he got the energy, and everyone was laughing and everything, cracking some Kathy Newman jokes and stuff like that. But then,
okay, was that a presentation or a lecture?
A lecture.
All right,
like
because
sitting,
sorry, go ahead.
Like sitting in the audience and just listening to him speak.
Yeah. Now this is something I've noticed because of my background that I think you guys wouldn't have. When he's on stage and there's hundreds of people in front of him, he talks like a pastor.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You could I think you could maybe call it a religious experience, but he's very good at convincing people, which it's a good thing. It's a good message to deliver. But that's what I mean when I say the potential is there, because just like he said, yeah, if he wanted to, he could turn his fans on people, and it would not be very good for the recipients.
Yeah,
but I don't think he is. I don't think he will. I'm just saying I do think the potential's there, and so I understand when people get a little nervous about him and his popularity.
Well, I think the potential is more there in his fans more than him. I think, like, obviously, I don't worry about him going dark and doing something crazy, but I think his fans are a different matter.
Sure, I guess you can say that about any figure, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like John Lennon wasn't asking anybody to kill anybody, and then, but it didn't turn out well for him because one of his fans turned out to be like insane. But yeah, so it's the same for anybody. But luckily, he's not.
Degrees.
Yeah.
Like for example, Sargon. I don't think he's starting a cult anytime soon. I don't think
he would be the first one to run away from his own cult.
Well, more than that, though, like you look at how his audience engages with him. If you read the comment section, his audience is very confrontational with him. Like, hey, shitlord, you fucked up here.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas with Jordan or with Peterson, it's different. You don't see, especially I know I'm just going by comment sections here on videos, but you don't see that same confrontational, level of confrontation between them, that disagreement.
Do you think that's because of who Sargon is? Because he's so prickly and blunt, and he does that to other people that he gets it in return?
No, I think it speaks more to who Peterson is and his experience and his sheer knowledge in the fields he talks about.
Yeah.
Like for myself before him, I didn't really know much about the greater symbology and the greater meaning behind mythology. I just knew I liked mythology and liked to read it. I didn't understand why it spoke to me.
Yeah. Those archetypes, though. Well, is that a good place to wrap up?
Yeah, I think so.
We're getting close to, I think, 2 hours, yeah?
Yeah, we're almost there.
Just about. Jesus Christ.
Time flies and you're in a good conversation.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It does.
So I'm going to be posting in the group. We'll do a poll for the next book in the next couple days, and we'll schedule another one of these.
That sounds good. I'm going to poison the well right now and say it should be Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. So
it'll definitely be on the list. I would vote for that.
Well, thank you so much for hosting this and letting me chime in and share it with you, because I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to future conversations.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and for making the leap, because I know I was terrified, but I'm super glad I did it.
Yeah, me too.
Woo. Okay, see you
Goodbye.
guys later.
Okay.
Bye.